Now we're going to be learning together about the executive functions. Probably you never had heard that term before, like me, before I learned a little bit about it. And these are all the different functions and different processes that your brain does to make things happen and to kind of complete actions to make things done. And I remember the first time I heard the term, I was like, what is that about? I never heard it. But then when I read what the different functions are about, executive functions, I felt like it was a different language in the world that basically I never heard of, never told me about how to speak it. And I was being assessed and judged by other people by knowing about this language, and I never knew. So by developing this knowledge and passing and sharing it with you, we would like you to share and to get acquainted with this language and to learn how to speak it, so it can be actually supporting you in your daily life, in your parenting journey, and actually make you feel more confident along the way.
So executive functions, they're actually part of the frontal lobe, right above your eyebrows, the front of your head, and they're definitely part of the brain's functioning, which allows you to complete tasks, allows you to plan what you want to do, and see them through in the real world. So that's all about how you execute them, which is why it's executive functions. And you can see very quickly why they are so important to how we go about a day-to-day life, especially with all the complexities of parenthood, and how it can be a particular challenge for people who are neurodivergent like you. Executive functions help us in loads of different ways. So it helps you remember what you need to do and remember about what you've done beforehand. Like bring in new piece of information and find out a way of integrating it into what you already know so that you can make more decisions. Prioritize things so that you can make the best actions for that exact moment. It also gives us lots of flexibility. So it allows us to adapt our actions to things that are actually happening now and new changes, new information. It also affects things like our ability to be motivated, to actually want to complete something, and then at the end of it, to feel really, really good when you have achieved your goals.
Exactly. So it sounds like really easy to say for many people, but what happened with neurodivergent brains like us is like it's not actually that easy, because our brains are usually more sensitive to internal and external things going on in our environment. We see and we experience the world in much more complexity than the rest, and perceive things at a higher intensities, like a higher volume in a way. And these processes, so these executive functions processes in our brains get usually interrupted, and they kind of compete with each other in a way that is not that harmonious as it could be. And but we can actually strengthen them through practice and through like developing certain key habits for it.
There are 8 main executive functions that we'd like you to know about. The first is working memory. So just keeping that information in your mind whilst you are currently using it and keeping track of it. Self-monitoring is where you sort of keep checking in with yourself, and just making sure that you're staying on task and that you're still working, completing all the things that you need to complete to finish a task. Planning and prioritizing is about setting goals, reasonable, sensible, achievable goals, and also like organizing the necessary steps, the small steps that you need to take in order to complete the task as well. And actually, task initiation, it sounds stupid, but actually starting the task can be the hardest step. So that's about actually starting it and putting it into action so that you can complete a task as well.
So organization is an executive function, is one of my areas of challenge personally. It's about keeping track of what is going on, what is happening, or how things or where things are in the physical reality, or the things that are part of your environment, and what is happening in your mind, what the kind of ideas, the things that you need to get done. What is that information is related to? Where do you put your all of the different folders of information in your laptop? How tidy do you keep or keep your things at hand when you need to use them for work, etc. Impulse control is about thinking before you acting to kind of measure the consequences. And having an ADHD brain, for instance, is not that easy sometimes, most of the time. And emotional regulation is about having the capacity to understand our emotions and not let and giving them space to be expressed and understood, and not letting them derail us. And flexible thinking is about trying to keep an open mind to adapt to to the situations when things change, especially. So basically, we can welcome and adapt, adjust our behavior when things change, go in a different way. Now that you're starting to speak the executive functions language, and you're getting acquainted to this new set of words, yes, we would like you to know that is all of these processes in reality, they're actually quite mixed. For instance, it's really difficult to organize yourself or what you need to do if your working memory is a little bit weak and you cannot remember what you just done. So, for instance, prioritize your next task. If you don't have like a bigger picture, what is more valuable for your organization you're working with, for your family, or for yourself. So they're all actually quite mixed and in kind of included in one another in a way. But it's very useful to learn how to break them down, so you know which one of them, which bits of those processes you might be stronger at, and which ones are areas of weaknesses. And yeah.
So there are some fantastic strategies that you can use and develop to address some of those things that are a little bit trickier for you, some of those executive functions that are not quite as strong, and some steps that you can take to become more aware of the different executive functions and which ones you need to strengthen. And we need to really keep in mind and learn that we can tackle our weaknesses with executive functions by pairing them with our strengths. So those things can be matched together. And there are always tools, sometimes external tools or things that you can do for yourself internally as well, that will help you on that strengthening and using your executive functions to your best ability.
If I can give an example to what Frankie has said, for instance, you might be a little bit forgetful or like sometimes becoming emotionally regulated at work, and then that make you feel like derailed from your outcome or for your goal. But you might be a very committed person, and you might be very good at like spotting like the bigger picture, very flexible, so that will allow you to readjust quicker. So that's what Frankie meant by pairing them together, right?
And so, because everyone has different areas of strength and weakness, it's really useful to be aware of those strengths and weaknesses.
So now we're gonna invite you to work on your worksheet related to the executive functions, and to do like self-screening or like a executive function skill check, so you can actually learn a little bit more about yourself and bring more awareness to this area of yourself, of your life. And also so you can start pairing them, as Frankie has said, your strength, your weaknesses with a strength, and then to tackle it in that way.